Hey, hey, hey. Eric from Bloat Games coming at you tonight with my special guest, Mr. Jody Brandt, aka Questwise from the Questwise channel here on YouTube. If you're not following him, you should be. We're going to be doing a little experiment tonight. Um, Neither one of us have successfully live streamed ourselves yet, so we're going to see how this, our live streamed conversation. So we're going to see how this goes. Right now, I'm taking a second. I'm pulling up just to make sure that we are in fact live. Hey Jody, while I pull this up, why don't you go ahead and shout out your channel and let them know what you're all about for those who aren't familiar with you.
Sure. I run a YouTube channel called Questwise. It actually started off as kind of a strange. I got approached by a group of guys who wanted me to do a live, sort of like Critical Role sort of channel kind of thing, and never really panned out. But I had already paid for the logo. I'd already paid for set up the channel and everything. So I decided to sit down one day with my phone and just start doing my thing. Most of my channel takes place, I read game reviews, role-playing game reviews. I do tips and tricks and tactics. I'm also a affiliate of Palladium Books as well too, so I do a lot of the stuff for them as well as reviews and cool sessions and stuff. I have yet to do any sort of live streaming as far as like actual play kind of stuff. Just again, like Eric said, we're just kind of getting back into the learning how to do this whole live stream thing. So I hope to do some in the future. But yeah, that's me. I also I kind of work for Eric as well too. Written a few things for him, and you know, he's a pretty good boss. So.
Yeah, I'm nice some of the time. Some of the time.
Most of the time, I saved all those horrible text messages you sent me though.
I know, right? As I say, I'm not sure Josh would agree, but I'm nice most of the time. All right, so I'm sharing this link out. We got some special, like something that's going to be announced here. That this is the first place that we're talking about it. Something that is in the very beginning stages of production here at Bloat Games, but something that we get asked about. Well, that we get asked when are we making. Is kind of coming to fruition. So I'm pretty excited about that for you guys. Let me just get this over here. All right. And then, so you're going to hear the announcement. And then going from there, we're also going to have where we actually go on and the other parts of what we're doing tonight is a lot of people will ask us, or at least ask me specifically, you know, how do you make role-playing games? I don't even know where to get started. And tonight's session is kind of a brainstorming session, brainstorming/planning, just making sure that Jody and I are on the same page, because we are going to be working on something super cool together. So let's see, the announcement. Guess we'll go ahead and start with that. Bloat Games is from the day one when I released Survive This Zombies. I immediately started getting requests. When are you going to release a fantasy game? When are you going to do a fantasy game? And I get that request quite often. Every time I release something, they're like, "Oh, that's really cool. I love Dark Places Demogorgons," or "Oh, that's really cool. I love Vigilante City. When are you going to release a fantasy game?" So one thing that you know, I grew up loving the Mincer Red box. That was like my jam as a kid, and I know Jody's heart is pretty fond of the early editions, the box sets of Dungeons and Dragons as well. So what we're doing is we're going to be making a Survive This fantasy box set. We haven't officially titled it yet, but it's going to be using the Survive This system. It's going to be set in a fantasy setting. It's not going to be like a straight up retro clone of a previous system. You know, we're going to have the things in there that you're used to seeing with with our Survive This system. So we're going to have some mechanics like advantage, disadvantage. We're going to have the usage die. We're going to have our leveling system from Survive This, and experience point system, and all that. But it's very much, if you've enjoyed playing any of our games, you're going to hopefully enjoy the fantasy version of that. When I first came to Jody with the idea, I approached him. I said, Jody, I want you. I gave him an option of 2 things to work on, and I said, I need you to work on either this or work on this with me. And he picked this. He said this was his jam. So Jody, I'll let you give everybody a little heads up. Where are you coming from the old school box set fantasy background? Jody, you still there? Oh no, Mr. Bill.
Oh, I'm still here.
Oh, there you go. Now I got you. I got you now. Go ahead.
Cool. All right, cool. Back 1991, 1992, I visited a couple of, and he introduced me to limited books, and I was instantly I loved, and I finally tried to like take all these cool.
Hey, Jody, I think you're turning into a robot on me, partner.
Hero. And I pull back. Yeah, you're a little happy as well too, man. We're still there. Or I can't really tell.
Yeah, we're still live.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Cool. Continue on.
All right. So I came back home to northern Michigan, and they hadn't fallen under the Palladium spell yet. So all I could find at local Walden Books was copies of the D&D Second Edition Player's Handbook, and I loved fantasy. I'd started reading Tolkien when I was very young, Terry Brooks, the Sword of Shannara series. So I mowed a couple of lawns, saved up my $20, bought the first Player's Handbook, and I've been hooked ever since. I played all the way through high school. I played through college. In college, I was able to go back and play First Edition and BX D&D. I've always been fantasy has always been my jam. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. I do love science fiction and superhero games, but man, I've just have a real strong draw for fantasy. And so when Eric offered me the opportunity to work on this box with him, this was a dream come true to have my name on a cool fantasy box set like the good old days. But I've been playing ever since then. I love D&D, all iterations of it. I even played Fourth. I ran Fourth a bunch. I know that's makes me kind of the black sheep for like a Fourth edition, but I played a lot of it, and I love it all. I love Dungeon Crawl Classics. I love the OSR stuff especially, and so I'm glad to be able to have a chance to work on sort of an OSR type game, but with our own special twist on it. So
cool deal. Yeah, and that's one thing that we're not, like I said, we're not making a straight up retro clone. We are definitely trying to not make a unique, because we're putting our spin on it. I don't want to say we're reinventing the wheel. Nothing like that's happening. But we are putting we're bringing our flavor and our taste to it. Both Jody and I were influenced a lot by not just Dungeons and Dragons, but also, like you said, Palladium Fantasy. So you're going to see familiar elements that we loved as children coming in back into the fold. And what I hope to do is really try to present this all to you via YouTube. I mean, we're going to do work off camera and stuff like that, but I want to. We'll Jody and I'll have some meetups, and we'll we'll bring you in, let you be part of it, and let you see how something like this gets going. And that way, if you're a person who's interested in making your own role-playing games, you can see that there's no real magic to it. It's just some people with some ideas, and then putting in the work to make it happen. So one of the first things that I did is I wanted to really find a look and a tone for the game. We're not going to do a setting per se, so it's going to be a fantasy rule set. So the box set will include a player's handbook, game master's guide, and then a monster manual. And there may be some stretch goals that might add a series of micro fantasies by some famous or celebrity RPG writers in the industry. But we're not setting anything in there. But with that, though, I wanted to find something that was cohesive, that we could latch on to and say, okay, this is what our game looks like. And I was able to do so through the through DriveThruRPG. They have you can find a ton of stock art on there. They have a gentleman named by the name of Dean Spencer, and if you get a chance to look up his stock art on there, it's pretty amazing. And I licensed quite a bit of it particularly for use with this game, and presented it to Jody. I said, okay, this is what I want the game to look and feel like. And so that really kind of set the tone for, I think, where we're going. And Jody, so what did you think of the art when I sent it over to you?
Amazing stuff. Yeah, if like Eric said, if you haven't had a chance to check this guy's stuff out, please do. It really gives me. I've always been a huge fan. One of my all-time favorite fantasy artists has been Keith Parkinson. I love his stuff. I'm totally enthralled by his artwork ever since I saw the cover of the Playbooks Adventures in the Northern Wilderness, and that led me to people Larry Elmore and Clive Caldwell and all these kind of classic, awesome, like 1990s fantasy artists. And so they have that sort of Dragonlance-y Forgotten Realms feel, but at the same time, they've also sort of got a nice sort of like Boris Vallejo, Frank Frazetta kind of feel to them as well too. That sort of epic fantasy that's kind of encompasses all sorts of stuff, from everything from really high fantasy epic castles and dragons and unicorns and stuff, all the way to that sort of like gritty sword and sorcery stuff that you find in like Robert E. Howard's writings and stuff as well. So I'm super excited about this. I can't wait to it's sort of a nostalgic thing for me to kind of go back to the 90s, to that like sort of second edition kind of stuff that I love so much. And I think it definitely, the artwork that you sent me, Eric, it really set the tone for the kind of stuff that I was trying to like write notes on and get some stuff on paper, as far as like game design kind of stuff goes as well too. So
Definitely. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up. I have a document here, and what I did is when I start working on games, one of the first things I do is I do what I call the drill downs, and it's kind of like just writing a table of contents before you have any content. What I do is I'll write like attributes, and then I'll tab over and write strength, dex, blah 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 blah, and then I'll start another level with what comes next, and go down that way. And so I'd sent that over to Jody, and that's really as far as we got. I sent over to Jody. I said, all right, man, make some notes and tell me what you think about it, and we'll sit down and talk about it. And this is our actual sit down and talk about it. So as soon as that document opens up, we'll just kind of start from the top, and we'll go over it together. And while you guys are checking in and watching, if you get any questions come up, I'm trying to monitor the chat here on my cell phone. If you get any questions that arise, feel free to ask us. We'll do our best to answer them. Let's see. minus that, and there we go.
So one of the things I kind of like to akin this to, I don't know if everybody's familiar you are, James Spawn's Heroes years ago. I love the game, and the reason I think I love it is because it's very familiar. It's based in the OSR kind of feel. It's very D20. If you've ever played any OSR games, you feel right at home. But at the same time, he took everything he loved about role-playing games and sort of incorporated those things into it as well too. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping that we can do here with this, is that we can make this sort of like our homage to what we loved about role-playing games back in the day and stuff as well too. So
Definitely.
yeah, really, I think I'm really excited about this, and I hope that people will love it as much as we have loved just kind of doing it too. So
Definitely. Well, and Jody, we already got a comment in the chat, or a question here.
nice.
Fred Daniel says, I'm absolutely excited about that you are working on a fantasy, which is my favorite genre. Will this be OSR inspired? Yes. We love the OSR, and not that I won't make games, in the future that are not OS that stray from the OSR. I mean, that's definitely going to happen, but this one specifically will definitely be OSR inspired, and really a love letter to the whole OSR movement and the people who play those games. I mean, I'm writing it for people like myself, and I think that's what Jody's in it for too. So is for people like us who love these games and can play them, and hopefully love this game too.
And that's a big thing too. I think we want to design the games that we want to play, and we hope that the people that are playing the games with us are looking for those same kind of things. There's a lot of OSR products out there right now, and they're all different in their own unique way. Everything from Jim Spawn stuff to Matt Finch's stuff, and they're all awesome. It just really depends on what you're looking for at that particular time. And so I think that the thing we're heading for is that you'll feel comfortable with the game, with the mechanics, but at the same time we'll have some cool stuff that makes it uniquely ours, that other people might like as well too. So if we like playing it, there's got to be some people out there who enjoy the same thing. So
definitely. And we just had Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review checking in. Said, hey guys, how's it going? Man, it is going great. You picked a great night to jump in. We're kind of going over we're trying something new on our channel. First time ever that we're kind of live streaming this and doing game design in front of people. So that's great. Now, Jody, I do got the Survive This Fantasy drill downs pulled up.
okay.
And so we're going to start right at the top. The first couple are real easy to get out of the way. Credits. So far on the credits, we got you, me, and Dean Spencer. That's as far as we've gotten. And then of course we'll both have to write dedications. And sure. I was thinking that we may, because there's different books, we may trade off the dedications. One of the thoughts I had actually was to break the core rule book into, actually split it in two. So put all the character building stuff and the core rules in one book, and all the magic, like have a book of magic. Ben Milton, Questing Beast, he did a review on the new BX clone, and
sure, the Essentials,
yeah, the Essentials, yeah, and they did that, and one of the things that he brought up, because at first I was like, well, why would you do that? But he said, oh, this is wonderful. At the table, you can pass it around, so your wizard will have the spells, and he can share with the cleric, and then your fighters may need the. And I was like, oh, that is a really good idea. So depending on cost, we may do that, and if that's the case, we might break the dedications down to separate them out in separate books. or we may just put both of ours right in the core rule book and leave it at that, and not do any dedications. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, whatever works. I mean, whatever works design wise is fine with me. That's not a problem. I do like that. I just watched that yesterday, his review, and yeah, it's a genius move on their part. It's a nice to be able to pass those things around without having to have one giant rule book that everybody has to share. Hopefully, everybody will just buy the box set for themselves. But
Right.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good move. I think it kind of comes down to like final design when we're doing layout to kind of figure out how that works and how it flows and what it looks like. So
cool.
I'm open for anything.
All right. And then next we got table contents, and that of course will all fill itself in. And if you're wondering what we're doing, literally when I do the drill downs, I'm just going in order of the pages. So this is how I see the book being laid out. If it was all one book, not necessarily does it have to be that way. And definitely it's up for change. And that's kind of some of the stuff we're talking about now. But the initial concept is the book would be laid out, in this order essentially. All right, and then for the forward, I put Frank Mincer with like 3 question marks. Jody, I'm really going to try to make that happen. I'm going to try either to get Frank or Larry Elmore or some of the the TSR guys who really really made a difference really made a huge impact on my life and certainly on yours too. I may even reach out depending on how things are going. I may even reach out to Kevin Sambidi to possibly get him. But I want a legend for the forward, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be utterly amazing to be able to have somebody, write the forward to this whole thing for us. I've met a lot of those guys. I've talked to Kevin several times. All the guys at Palladium are fantastic, and it would be really cool. I know I'm heavily influenced by everything Palladium. If you've watched any of my channel, you'll see that I would say 75% of it's all Palladium content. But yeah, any of those guys, and it might be worth a shot too. I really hoping to join you at GaryCon next year, and maybe we can hit up those guys there. I'm sure Frank will be there. All the big ones, even Luke Gygax, Tim Kask, any of those guys. So
definitely,
maybe we can get a couple of them to do it. That would be fantastic.
That would be amazing. Yeah, so we're shooting for the stars for that one, guys. Hey, we got a couple more comments here. Fred Daniels, he just chimed back in and said, love your channels, so I can't wait to see your take on the fantasy. And then for the unscripted Unchained, I didn't realize this, but that's actually DM Bloodworth, and he said he'd love to play test anything if we're looking for that. So we will definitely keep you in mind, because we will be doing some play tests and trying to get the community involved as much as we can to make the best product we can. So yeah, definitely that's something that's easy to make happen. So, all right. So then Jody, going next after the forward is going to be the prologue, and the prologue is, I think that's something that I'm going to tackle myself, or that I would like to tackle myself. I thought about maybe doing some piece of fiction, but I think instead I'd rather spend the prologue explaining our intent for the design of the game. And because some people are going to pick it up and think that it's a retro clone, and explain that this is not a retro clone. It harkens back and steals heavily from the systems that came before, but it's not like a straight up clone of a prior Dungeons and Dragons system. And I think that would probably be the best place for that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we give a little bit of history and our influences in that part, and then talk about how we're going to take those influences and put our own spin on them, and make the game. Like I said earlier, I think that I kind of envision the game as being something that's familiar to people, but yet has some very unique, cool qualities to it. I think that's a perfect place for that. Yeah, man. We can always fit in some little pieces of fiction, so, elsewhere as well too. Maybe at the beginning of some of the other books and stuff as well. So.
Sure, definitely. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I know we'll find uh, places for that. So then going forward, that's actually after the prologue, we jump into the rule book proper, which is going to be the introduction. And that's going to go over the stuff like, the basics. What is a role-playing game? So this is the stuff for people who's never played games before. Common abbreviations, so NPC, GM, all the stuff that we usually use. The dice abbreviations. What do you need to play? Pen, paper, or pencil, paper, dice, and possibly miniatures. The rules versus rulings text, which has so far has appeared in all of our core books, and definitely will apply to this game very much so. That this game will be rulings over rules. So, and then finally, the last part of that is going to be the getting started with the character sheet and launching right into character creation. Did you have any thoughts about any portion of that chunk of stuff?
Well, I think the rules versus rulings is very important. I know that you and I both have a very similar sort of outlook at running games when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I think that allows us to work together really well. I know that we're both very sort of narratively driven when it comes to role-playing games, and thus, if my motto is always, if it's cool, let it happen. And so I think that's going to be a very important part to make sure that that's this isn't going to be a tournament pack. This isn't going to be like classic Tomb of Horrors kind of thing. It's definitely going to be one of those things. The rule of cool kind of outweighs the actual rules themselves. So
definitely, I agree totally. Hey, Jason just jumped on here. Jason Mabry, and he says, "So weird. I was literally just yesterday thinking to myself, it would be neat if Survive This did a pure fantasy game. No joke." Well,
nice. It's coming.
That's very timely. Yep. All right. So then jumping into the character creation, it starts, of course, with the stats. I want the universal bonus stat table in there. But then also, Jody, on there, I put down like each of the individual stats, the strength, intelligence, wisdom, dex, con, charisma, and survival for Survive This. I want those to have tables. So like, your charisma will have the table that, how many hirelings you have. And, those, so like the attribute specific bonuses. And a lot of that comes right from kind of the Mincer Basic version. We may tweak the numbers some based on our system being a little bit different, but that's kind of the feel and flow that I had envisioned. Is that what you had in mind as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's perfect. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Cool.
I love the survival stat. I think that's a great idea. I've always loved ways in which a player can help their character sort of do cool and unique things, and I think the survival stat does that really well. Kind of reminds me of like the luck stat from Dungeon Crawl Classics in a way.
That's exactly where I stole it from.
Cool. I think it's one of those cool things that allows your character to do, again, pull off some really epic stuff, some very narratively driven things. So
cool. Awesome. All right. Then going forward, we're going to have the hit points and hit dice, armor class, Those are pretty standard. Now this is going to be ascending armor class. So no Thaco in there. You good with no Thaco?
Yeah, I guess I'll let it slide this time.
All right, I was gonna say we could arm wrestle for it.
No,
I think you might win.
no, no, that's good stuff. I think that's the easiest way to go. I think that's one of the more accepted, kind of tropes right now as far as D20 games and stuff, OSR games go as well. I've seen a lot of cool games do, give you the option to do them both, but I think it's just way so much easier. It takes a little bit more of it speeds the game up. Definitely does. You don't have to stop to do math in your head and that kind of stuff when you just have the ascending armor class. So I think it's definitely a smart move to go with that.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So saving throws. Now, what I'd done for saving throws is I just kind of I looked at what we had done previously in either Survive This Zombies, Dark Place, Demigorgons, and the Vigilante City, and I kind of picked 5 out of those that we had done before, which was I picked critical, death with the out of action table, magic, mental, physical, and then a portion for NPCs saving throw. So NPCs will have one static saving throw. With that being said, I also had kind of thought maybe about leaning towards like the white box version of just having a single saving throws. What's your thoughts on those?
I mean, I dig the single saving throw thing, but I feel like it's too generic. I kind of like saving throws that sort of cover a lot of different ground, so it feels a little bit more dynamic. It does, you don't just have a static number that covers everything. I like to have my character sort of be better at certain things than other things. So like he might be, really his constitution might be at a point where, when it comes to a death saving throw, he's a little bit better than say like, the weak sort of Raistlin type character who's very sickly and such. I like to think that some characters maybe are better with withstanding magical effects than others. So I like the spread of saving throws as opposed to just a single one. Although I understand where the single one comes from. It's just way easier to keep track of. But yeah, I think a spread of 5 or 6 is doable. It's easy to keep track of that kind of stuff. So
okay, all right. Was there any of those ones that are listed there that you want to change out? Any of the ones that you had issue with or anything?
No, I think those are all really good, actually. Yeah, that's cool. I like the addition of the NPC saving throw. It makes those guys feel a little bit. It gives the game master a little bit of control, I guess, too, or a little bit of a chance for the non-player characters to survive certain things as well, too. So, I think those are really good.
I was thinking with the NPC saving throw, what we would do, Jody, is it'd be a single save, so they wouldn't have like a critical, a death, all that stuff. They would just have a single save. If they gotta make a save, it's on this chart, and we base that off their hit dice equivalent, their HGE. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. I mean, most of the stuff you're going to be encountering anyway are going to be, thugs and mooks and stuff anyway.
Yeah.
If we have to, if there's some big major villain we want to introduce later, we could always give them the standard spread like a character as well too. But I think for the average creature, goblins, whatever, a single one should be fine.
Awesome. All right. DM Bloodworth has chimed in again. Said, "I'd love to see a mental health system similar to the Call of Cthulhu in a fantasy game setting." Our mental health, it's nowhere near what that is, but there's a portion of me, because I love the old Palladium Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles mental health saves, and there's a portion of me that would like to bring something like that back for this, but we'll have to see how that goes. To tell you the truth, that may be something that may be too maybe too much for what we're trying to accomplish with the smaller saves.
I think we could probably roll in. I love the idea of insanity, like the Call of Cthulhu idea. I think we could probably tie that into like the mental saving throw a little bit. We
Okay.
could just make a type of thing like that. I think it's cool. And again, yeah, we could just probably tie it into the mental saving throw. But I like that aspect of, you know, coming across a creature that it's so sort of otherworldly that it sort of, you know, it shocks or stuns you for a bit as well too. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we can make that happen. I think that wouldn't be too hard. But yeah, going into a full, you know, like Palladium, and I love the Palladium Insanity system.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Some and but it's very involved, and it takes up a lot more space and a lot more time and a lot more depth for those kind of things too. But I think Insanity would be a cool aspect to add in as well too.
Cool. All right. Now alignment. I know you had some ideas on alignment, so I'll let you call this one out. What you got up your sleeves for alignment there, Jody?
So Eric and I were talking about alignment, and alignment can be a very tricky subject. You know, the standard is the 9 sort of, you know, lawful good all the way up to chaotic evil kind of stuff. And yeah, from a lot of the stuff I've seen, a lot of stuff I've read, a lot of stuff I've played, sometimes those get they always get overlooked. I mean, it's almost near impossible to not bring a part of yourself to the character you're playing. So it's really, really difficult to play a true lawful good character. So we had discussed about maybe just going with the law, neutrality, chaos thing. And we decided to probably just go without alignment as far as characters go. So your characters can act however it is you feel morally apt to treat them. And it's interesting. I think dynamic characters really come from their reaction to the situation. So characters that you play as normally being good will sometimes do horrible things if the situation fits, where that doesn't really fit into, say, a lawful good character or a neutral good, or how, you know, the spread of those traditional ones. So I think we've decided that we're just going to do away with alignment altogether as far as characters go. What I'd like to do, though, is I would like to have a sort of Elric, sort of Michael Moorcock idea of law and chaos as well too, but that will only come into when you're playing a magic user or a cleric. So you'll have to choose a side. There will be lawful spells, there'll be neutral spells, and there'll be chaotic spells and stuff. As far as clerics and stuff go, because we're trying to go with a generic system, we'll get into this later when we go into the magic system a little bit. But as far as alignment goes, it's going to be just no alignment for your character. It'll be something that you can sort of grow in your character as you play that character out. So
yeah, I think alignment was used a lot to a tool or device by GMs to restrict or punish characters for choosing a particular item or for acting out of character. And while I'm very old school in most of my most of my love for those old traditions, that was one that always rubbed me wrong. I just think, you know, if you're playing a character, if you want to play a jerk, or if you want to change, you should be able to play or change your character as you wish, and not be imposed with something, unless you're like a cleric who has a reason to be a good person. So yeah, I thought that was a very good idea there. All right. The next one on our list here, Jody, is backgrounds. I thought this would be something really neat to kind of infuse some more Dungeon Crawl Classic type stuff into there, and so have the backgrounds be, you know, you can have a dung farmer, you can have all these different type of things. You may have worked on a boat before, you may have had, and each little background have a small, some kind of benefit to you, and maybe some kind of negative to you. That way, you know, it would just be something that makes your character that much more of a chance of having a unique role or a unique character that you've not played before. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I always backgrounds always had a really interesting element to character creation. Be it D&D Fifth Edition or be it Dungeon Crawl Classics. One of my favorites, the Warhammer Fantasy role playing game, always gave you, you'd start off with this crazy, you might, yeah, again, you might be a dung farmer. Maybe you were, a sheep herder or something. But you could also be, also have been maybe a doctor. And those will kind of influences your choices as a character in going forth. It also kind of gives a nice sort of story behind where your character came from and why they are why they're an adventurer now, why they've left what they've been doing. Gives you some cool things. Another thing I wanted to kind of pitch to you, Eric, I don't know if you've ever played Burning Wheel at all. Have you tried that game at all?
No, I haven't. I keep looking at it, and I'll run into it on out sometimes, and I think I need to pick that up, but I've yet to dive into it.
So super, super, super crunchy game. The book actually looks like a Bible when you get it. It's that size. Yeah, it's big. But it's got some really, really cool elements. And one of those is they call them beliefs. So every character actually starts with a series of beliefs. And I thought it'd be kind of cool if we could do something to tie those into the backgrounds a little bit. So you would pick a background that would give you some small benefit, maybe a skill or a bonus to some kind of thing, but also sort of like you would write a belief for your character. And those beliefs could change over time. They wouldn't be a static thing, but you could write something, like say your background was a blacksmith, but now you're, now you're a fighter adventuring, and your belief would sort of bridge the gap between those two. Like, this is the reason why I'm now, searching for the lost treasure of Azul or something, so that belief would kind of bridge that gap as to why you're an adventurer now. But at the same time, it could change over time. So, once maybe you found that treasure or that the cure for some disease or whatever, your belief might change to something else that's currently going on in the campaign. I don't know, maybe your thoughts on that as well too. It would just be like a 1 sentence kind of thing that was tied to your background. But
That'd be cool. Yeah, no, I'm all for that. I'm also kind of like the thought of have you heard of tags in games where
yeah, sure.
So I'm open to see what that's like in this kind of system as well. So both of those, the belief, I kind of like that it's something that just it gives a person that much more like character development for their character before play starts. So I'm definitely down for that. That's cool.
The other thing that's great about beliefs, though, too, is it gives the game master some fuel for further adventures. And the thing I found I really loved about Burning Wheel was that if I ran out of ideas of where to push the characters or where to let them go or what the next adventure might be, I can always look at the beliefs of those characters, and we can you could build a whole adventure sort of path out of one of the characters' beliefs as well too. So it kind of helps both sides. It definitely fleshes out the characters more, but at the same time, it also gives the game master a lot of fuel for further adventures too.
All right. And Jody, we're getting some suggestions over here in the chat.
Okay.
Fred Daniel says, I encourage you to freely dip into the Palladium stuff that you guys love. I think it is part of who you are, and there are tons of good inspiration in the Palladium products. He also says that he loves the beliefs and passions. Tommy Bennett chimed in, said unusual character classes would be a welcome change. Yeah, I think, Tommy, when we're about to get to the character class in just a minute, I think you'll be happy because it's not your standard one. Let's see. Jason says maybe a drive instead of a belief, since it might change or evolve. I love the idea, though. Let's see. Then Fred chimed back in with even changing the class names adds a new feel. And Steve Cummings is watching us. What's up, Steve?
Hey, Steve, how's it going, man?
So it must be. Is it early morning over there for you? I'm not sure what the time difference is, but I know
we were talking about this the other day too. It's about, well, at least for me up here in northern Michigan, it's about a 13-hour difference for us. So, and it's about 9:30 here. So
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome. So yeah, so I'm open to all those. We can. That's one thing we'll explore together, Jody. We'll look at the beliefs, the fears, flaws, the tags, and play with them and see what's the best fit for what a survive this character feels, looks, and feels like in a
Sure.
fantasy setting. So, all right. So up next we're now loading into the classes. So this is where some excitement comes in. Um, the classes, as far as like requirements and prerequisites, I like that, and think we should do that. Is that something you're okay with? Is having prerequisite for to be a certain class?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I mean, that's something you see across the board, and as far as OSR stuff goes, I mean, I'm sure there'll be several of them that you won't need. Like, and we'll go into these a little bit further, but under the warrior class, I mean, the cell sword, stuff like that, there probably won't need to be in entry kind of level prerequisites, but I think there's a lot of them that should, and definitely makes the character a little bit more playable, a little bit more exciting to play as well too. So yeah, I'm all for the prerequisite thing.
All right. And so what I did is, like I said, a lot of this stuff we haven't discussed, but one of the first things I did is I sent over to Jody my list of some character classes that I thought would be cool to see in there. And so what we'll do, Jody, is we'll go through what's on the sheet now that's my list, and we'll kind of get your I'll kind of get your feedback on each one of them. And then if there's any of the one, like if you came up with any or you got notes on some ones that you want to add, then we'll go back through and kind of put those in. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the up first, I kind of got the classes divided into there's classes, then kind of subclasses. So the main classes are going to be warriors, holy characters, mystics, psychics, nature, and specialists as they stand now. All right. So we're going to start with the warriors. For warriors, we have the barbarian, the bowman, the gladiator, the knight, and the sellsword. What's your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think those all work. The gladiator, I felt like maybe it was a little bit too restrictive. It makes it it's kind of hard to envision a gladiator. I guess when I think of gladiators, I think of being sort of like traditional, being like slaves that are bought and sold, and maybe at some point when they're free. I think of the Gladiator movie where Russell Crowe.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it definitely. I think it has a play if it's more of a character class, or if it maybe is more of a background type thing.
Okay.
I think that those could fit somewhere in there, but I guess I think of a gladiator as more of a restrictive type class. Barbarian, I had a couple of thoughts on. I was thinking about maybe calling the barbarian a berserker instead.
Okay.
And it kind of gives a little bit more. I think, and further down when we get into the nature classes, I think that maybe we could call the tribesman or the native the barbarian, and make the barbarian with the rage attribute or whatever a berserker instead. It kind of gives it a little bit more flavor. Yeah, that was my thought on those. The rest of them I think are great. Bowman really touches my heart because it was one of my favorite character classes to play in Palladium Fantasy. I always thought that was a great class, and I always thought that in D&D that the archer, it was always kind of lumped in with the fighter, and it just never archery fighting with a bow in D&D just wasn't a very cool thing. I don't know. It just wasn't. You didn't get a lot of cool bonuses. I think if you make it its own class, we can give it some cool bonuses to damages and how many shots and all sorts of. I think there's cool things we can do with that. Knight definitely. That kind of fits that nice sort of noble type thing, and then the sellsword fills in the rest of our fighter class type thing. I like the term sellsword a lot more than I do mercenary. The sellsword, I don't know, it just feels a little bit better for turn the mercenary. It kind of gives it a broader appeal too. So yeah, I think those are cool.
Awesome. All right, then the next class with subclasses is the holy, and I put down a crusader, a holy hunter, and a priest. And my thoughts for those three were the crusader would be kind of like a paladin. You're on a quest to do something. You have something you're trying to achieve, and you do that by by action if it requires it. The Holy Hunter is going to be more of your standard cleric, but I wanted that not to be restricted to the undead, turn undead. I wanted the Holy Hunters to have the ability to select a creature type, so they may be able to turn undead, they may be able to turn vampires, they may be able to turn werewolves. Have a list, like a D20 list of creatures that they can choose, and so that way it's not every single cleric has the same ability. They have separate. It's a way to kind of make each one unique, and also they're specifically kind of a monster hunter, like to appease their gods. They're out trying to rid the world of undead or rid the world of vampires. They're not passively just happen to run across them in a dungeon. They're seeking them and questing for them. And then the priest was going to be more of a less combat focused class. More of the priest is there to gather minions to join their religion, and those were my thoughts. Anyways, what you got on the holy class?
Well, I'm glad we're on the same page as this, because this was the one I had the most notes on. I'm the Crusader's perfect. I think that fills the paladin role very, very well. And one of the things that I was always like kind of put off upon in classic D&D stuff was that the paladin and the cleric felt very similar. Like the cleric could wear heavy armor. He couldn't have an edged weapon, but he was still bashing people with a mace or something. So yeah, I wanted to make those two feel very distinctly different. So I love the paladin class. I think it's great. I love the fact that since we're not doing alignment, that paladin could be a paladin of order. He could be a paladin of chaos as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a nice lots of character development in that aspect. I like the priest to be able to the same way you're describing it. He's less combat focused. He's more of like a medieval monk in that sense, where he's looking to gather followers for his god. He's looking to simply spread the word of order or chaos or neutrality or whatever, to bring more followers into the fold. And one of the things I was thinking of was that the trope is always that the cleric is always the healer in the party. You're always going to turn to him. I think it would be interesting that the priest, our priest, access to the healing spells, but he might not always be the healer. Like he might be somebody who is able to inspire crowds with prayers or speeches and those kind of sermons, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But he's definitely less of a combat focused person, and more of an advisor type class. He would be with a person who could heal you, but at the same time would give you sort of inspiration to fight better or to fight for a cause. The Holy Avenger, or the Holy, what did you call it? I'm sorry.
Holy Hunter.
Pull up my phone. Holy Hunter. What if we call it the Exorcist? What if we call it the Exorcist class? And the same thing you had mentioned, I was thinking the same thing, that kind of gives us that aspect of they could choose what it is that their enemy, their chosen enemy is, whether it be demons or ghosts or undead or even angels, if they wanted to go that route. If they wanted to be a holy hunter or an exorcist for a dark god, Maybe they're looking to snuff out, these uppity like angelic beings or something. It could be banshees. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there. I think, but I mean, if you're cool, I think Exorcist has got a cool ring to it. And they're kind of the divide in between. They're like the mix of cleric and holy, geez, what's it called? And crusader. Yeah, so they're not as good as fighters as the Crusader, but they're not, they're able to wear more armor, or maybe even like magical type items that give them armor bonuses, trinkets, relics, that kind of stuff. The thing I always think of, and I love, have you ever seen the movie Constantine? Or is it, sorry, not Constantine. I guess it's the movie of the Mummy. Where the guy comes face to face with the mummy, and he's got this little necklace or bracelet, and it's full of dozens of different like holy symbols, and he's kind of going through them trying to find the right one, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I kind of envision the Exorcist being that same way. He's read all these texts. He knows all the lore behind demons and angels and the ghosts and the fair, and he's able to sort of like. While he's more focused on one route, but he still has access to lore on a bunch of different things and knows how to deal, which I think gives a nice dynamic too, as well, to a group of characters, the party itself. That way, they encounter something. Maybe he can use his lore skill or his lore ability to be able to like come up with some kind of weak every creature that they kind of. But thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that sounds wonderful. I like that quite a bit, actually. Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
All right, let's see. We got some more questions over here. Steve came back on and let us know that it was when we were asking, it was 10:23 a.m. over there. Jose says, when we getting a shaman class with totems or spirit animals? Just stick around a couple more minutes there, Jose. I think you'll be pleased. Steve says, do you plan to do any martial arts? We don't have it on there, but that is actually something that I think we should have. Yeah. What say you?
Well, I think the thing that I think of when I think of martial arts in a fantasy game doesn't necessarily strictly have to be, Eastern martial arts. It doesn't have to be like kung fu or karate or something like that, aikido. But it could be, a sort of a blend of, like when I play a monk in 5th edition, I always thought it was weird that you would go and punch something, like a beholder with your fists. But being able to have sort of a martial art focus to make you a better fighter. Maybe you attended an academy that makes you a better, you would have more focused skills on certain types of martial fighting skills. Doesn't necessarily have to be, flips and kicks and Eastern type stuff, but it could be just a focus on one. You could be maybe like a sword saint kind of an idea. Where maybe you've put all your martial focuses into being the perfect swordsman or pole arm specialist or something like that. So, yeah, an interesting thing. We can play with that later. It kind of fits in maybe with a specialist class, maybe, who we'll get to a little bit later. But
cool, definitely. All right, and Jason chimed in, said, I'm loving the Holy Hunter idea. Each one have a focus. I'm a vampire hunter, or I'm an exorcist fighting ghosts and spirits, or I'm a hunter of ghouls, etc. Yeah, that was thanks for that comment, Jason, because that was something that I really wanted to change up the standard cleric. I thought that that Palladium books that are Palladium Fantasy did their classes that would be cleric type classes were always much more appealing and interesting to me than the standard cleric in Dungeons and Dragons. So, all right. So the next series we have is the Mystic class, and under the Mystic class, I had the Alchemist, the Necromancer, the warlock / witch, and the wizard. With the alchemist, I really wanted somebody who, you're more making potions and salves and all kinds of stuff like that. You're not a true wizard. You're not like casting spells, is the way that I saw that class. And then the other three are pretty much your standard tropes. So what do you think about those, Jody? Did I lose you?
Am I still there?
Yep, I'm here now. I got you. Oh, and you're gone.
He's a magic user, but he's not casting spells. He's using more natural lore to create things like healing potions and oils and salves and creams, that kind of stuff, that can enhance him, but he's not drawing upon sort of the mystical idea of magic. He's sort of using the natural elements around him to create things that sort of emulate magical effects as well too. So that's kind of how I envision the alchemist. With the other three, I kind of see them as being we'll get into this a little bit later too in the magic, but I kind of envision magic as having three aspects to it, having order and neutrality and chaos, or I was calling it taboo as well too. So on one end, you're a wizard and you have some sort of access to a mana source, or it doesn't have to be called mana. I know that's a Magic the Gathering term, but some sort of source to magic, whether it be certain rituals or words that evoke the magic in the area, or you draw it from some type of essence of like the Fey realms or something. And and as a wizard, you're able to manipulate those things into special effects like fireballs and teleporting and that kind of stuff. Whereas the warlock and witch, I kind of see them as sort of the neutral ground. They're sort of seeking out a powerful being to give them their abilities. So whether it be an elemental or it be a god or whatever it is, they're sort of in the neutrality kind of thing, where they're keeping balance. They're actually not actually seeping magic energy from the earth or from some source. They're actually being granted their powers by some sort of thing. And I kind of see it as being more of a natural, like an elemental or an elemental meaning could be water, it could be air, or it could be some kind of elemental being. And as with the necromancer, I see them being on the sort of like chaos side and or the taboo side of magic, where they're dipping into things that shouldn't be done. So they're sort of the chaos aligned type of thing. They're bringing the dead back to life. They're speaking with the dead. They're going into realms that a lot of normal people in the world would find very taboo or offensive. Those kind of things. So they all kind of like find a niche in that sort of hierarchy of stuff that's in the world itself. The sort of hierarchy of the I guess the natural order of things. So
okay, all right, very cool. Yeah, that's exactly how I've seen it. Let's see. Jose says, I think the class that is a party buffer, debuffer would be awesome. That by itself would make me want to buy the game, like throwing curses at enemies, or making a group faster or slowing down enemies. So that's actually a really good idea, Jose. I kind of dig that. Somebody who is more of a support character, that'd be really cool. And then Jason says, almost like the ranger ability to get a new foe every few levels, except that this would be undead and demons. Okay, so yeah, he's talking about the holy hunter still, or the exorcist. And then Jose commented back in, and said it could be like an enchanter in EverQuest. Okay. Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Sure, I think that probably kind of falls. I mean, I can definitely see in the alchemist doing that kind of thing. Maybe they know the power of runes and could, throw a rune onto an object that, given to somebody, can give them a shield ability, or passing them a health potion or some type of thing. Yeah, but I see him as a very support type of a character, being able to take things and to enhance the group around them or themselves as well too. I mean, you could always pop a potion of giant strength and wade into the fray. It's a very flexible kind of class.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even the witch too could also. I mean, the witch could be, the witch could do like big magic spells, but they may take a long time. Like she may have a spell that takes her, a half hour to do, or she may be able to just do in combat to like hex people, or
Sure.
and things like that. So that would be really really cool.
Yeah, you could do things like curse an enemy, where you call out some kind of a curse upon them. It slows their movement or gives them a negative to their attack rolls. Maybe lowers their defense in some way or something as well too. Yeah, definitely keeps that sort of neutrality thing going that I had in mind for the at least the arcane classes and stuff.
Yeah, and if you're a good witch, because I wouldn't want to put like the negative stereotypes on that, especially since some people still today identify as witches. So even if like you're a good witch, you could bless somebody on your team to do better at whatever they're doing, as the inverse to the hexing. So that goes back into your alignment hierarchy. So
absolutely, yeah.
Cool beans. All right, the next thing we got up here is, now, did you have any oh well, we were going to say you were going to add all your classes at the end. Okay. So the next one we got up is the Mystic. Under the Mystic category, no wait, not the Mystic, sorry, the Psychic. I was like, wait a second, we just talked about that. So, under the Psychic, I had the Mental Combatant and the Scion, and my thoughts were on those. The Mental Combatant is really, it's a mind bleeder from Rifts. That's what my thought was. And then the Scion would be basically any other psychic ability, and these psychic abilities would be like what you worked on for us in Vigilante City. So it's not the D&D psychic abilities. That's why it's like called like the Scion. But so things like that is what I had in mind for those two classes. So the Mental Combatant would be somebody who specifically attacks people's brains. Is what is, that's their whole power set, is based around inflicting damage or something to their brain, making them see stuff, making them whatever, confusing them. And then of course the Scions, all the other stuff. So what do you got about that?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we make sure. One of the things when you first mentioned this to me, one of the things I wanted to make sure was that as far as like the magic using classes, the divine using classes, and the psychic classes, I want them all very distinct and unique amongst themselves. So they didn't fall into that trope of like 4th edition D&D where everybody felt the same. Whether it was you're using a fireball or you're using that's one of the things I saw very isn't I think that's a great right direction. I think there are other things out there besides magic, and that might be sort of psychic abilities, being that you're drawing the power from within yourself. Yes. It's not that you're drawing magic from the world outside of you. You're actually using your inner sort of strength to do things. It's got a little bit of a mystic, Eastern kind of feel going on to it. But the first person I thought of when you said psychic combatant was Psylocke from the X-Men.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite characters. I love the fact that she could create this sort of psychic knife and then drive into somebody's brain, and it would just, frazzle all their kind of thing. So I kind of see that kind of a thing, sort of a little bit of a martial character, but at the same time, using psychic abilities to do things like you said, to make them see things that aren't there, almost like illusions type thing, but only they can see them, confusing people, kind of scattering their brain a little bit, and then using their amount of martial attacks to sort of finish the job. And then with a scion being more of a sort of maybe a support type character, in that they're the one that can telepathically communicate with the rest of the group. They can feel empathy for other creatures or animals or other players. They're the emissary that you send in to talk to the rival king, to see, to bleed thoughts from his mind and read his thoughts, to feel what his true intentions are. So I see it almost like an emissary class, using sort of these science to get information from other people. It gives it another. It brings the idea of just hack and slash gaming up to another level of, here's a narrative type character who's not going to be, matching wits with orcs and goblins. They're going to be the one that's sort of like the spy of the group, using psionic abilities to gather information for the group and stuff as well too. So
cool deal. Awesome. All right, man. So the next one is the nature category, or nature class, and under there I had the Beastmaster, the Druid, and then originally we had the Native or the Tribesman, but we're going to drop the Barbarian down there.
Yeah, I was thinking the Barbarian. Are you familiar? Actually, Stephen and I just got finished reading the Oriental Adventures first edition book from D&D. We kind of did a group reading, and hopefully we're going to do a live stream where we discuss that book together here on YouTube as well. But their description of the Barbarian is very much different from any of the other barbarians in D&D. It's not a rage class. It's what you had kind of envisioned as tribesmen.
Okay.
They're very in touch. They're very in touch with the land. They're very in touch with nature. They're very suspicious of magic, and that's what makes them sort of barbarian characters. Is they're the people who are going to be either like the Picts living up in the forest in their little tribes, or they're going to be like the steppe nomads, like Genghis Khan and stuff. That they're not people who are going to dwell in cities. They're going to be very nomadic type peoples, that kind of thing. But they have this sort of high, so they're very in touch with the natural world, but at the same time, they're very suspicious of things like magic, and they are going to have their own types of gods, shamans and stuff as well too. So
exactly.
So I think we called them barbarians, and then actually called the barbarian with the rage ability a berserker. I think it kind of fits a little bit. I think it sort of cements the idea a little better.
Awesome. And Beastmaster, I mean, that's literally just the guy from the movie. That's what I envisioned.
Nice.
So you got some powers to communicate somehow with animals, and those powers grow as you go up in level type deal. So, let's see. And then a Druid is just kind of your standard fantasy Druid. So the next. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the Druid is kind of where our shaman falls in there as well too. It's very much that sort of character. That's very in touch with nature, very in touch with animals, but also very in touch with sort of the spirits of the land.
Yes.
One of the things that I wanted to incorporate was these barbarian tribes and these berserkers would be very much like, they would have their own sort of like local deities, things that are specific to their homes, their tribes, whether it be ancestors of theirs or it be some sort of nature spirit. Yeah, I would love to incorporate some kind of totem idea. It has its own sort of like specific benefit to the shaman or druid, but whether we call them druid or shaman, I think those are both really interchangeable.
Yeah. I think we may go with shaman over druid, just because I think that evokes. I think a lot of times when people hear druid, they think of almost like a magical ranger.
Yeah.
And I was more thinking of almost a holy man for a tribe, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, cool deal. Let's see. Got some more chiming in over here. Jose says, "Yeah, a support class would be great. You don't see that too much in games unless you take a wizard or try to get some spells to work that way." Um, and then Jason and DM Bloodworth said, "Good night, guys." They both hopped off here. And then Jose said, "How about a Dark Knight, aka Shadow Knight, who can tank but uses curses to raise the dead and maybe decay some stuff?" That's actually, Jose, that's a great idea. Yeah, I'm going to make a little note here next to night. Dark Knight. Yeah.
And they might even fall under, like they might even fall under like Crusader. It's just a chaotic version of a Crusader.
Yeah, that's true.
You could even just call it a Dark Crusader, because I kind of see the Crusader as being able to have some granted powers from some sort of deity, whether it be good or ill, or a chaos type being or type of thing. So yeah, being able to throw curses or hexes kind of thing, it would be just the opposite of the Crusader being able to cast some kind of like a strength spell on somebody or something as well too.
Right.
So
right, definitely. All right, and then the last class that we had was the specialist, which was going to include the assassin, the spy, and the thief. The assassin and the thief kind of well, the assassin I was basing loosely off the Sunjai assassin or Sunha assassins from the Atlantis book.
yeah.
Just a fantasy version of them. The thief is a thief, and the spy, I was thinking it'd be really cool if you had somebody who really focused on. I know some versions of D&D have thieves that can do this, but you have somebody who specifically focuses on like being able to impersonate people, putting on makeup, blending in, going undetected, all those things like that, and doing almost like espionage work in a fantasy setting. So that was my thought for the spy. What do you got on those?
Yeah, assassin I think is right on. I think the Sunaj thing is a great. I love that. I love that class from the Atlantis book. I also kind of envisioned it as a little bit of oh gosh, what's that big video game that's out right now? I don't play a lot of video games, unfortunately.
World of Warcraft.
No, it's the
Fortnite.
No, currently he's an assassin. He's I think the current game he's in Greece right now. He started in like Italy.
Oh, is Assassin's Creed?
Assassin's Creed, yeah, absolutely. So some kind of character like that, somebody who's able to use a lot of stealth and get in there and do dirty deeds, whether it be through stabbing someone or poisoning them or whatever, and then getting back out. My thoughts on I love the thief idea. I think that's just a very, very classic D&D trope. Maybe we could call him burglar instead. Maybe he's more of the character who's good at picking locks, and he's the traditional burglar. It sounds a little bit more unique to us.
Okay.
But that's just a semantics thing. The spy, yeah, love it. I love playing games that have lots of intrigue and espionage type stuff in it. I love hacking and slashing just as much as the next guy, but I also love Game of Thrones kind of games where there's a lot of political maneuvering and espionage and intrigue and stuff going on. And yeah, the spy, definitely. He's the guy who's a lot like the Scion, only the Scion's sort of your emissary, where the spy is more of the guy who is impersonating a noble to get information or to sow discord amongst the people. He might be able to impersonate, the assassin goes in and kills the mayor of the town. The spy goes in and becomes the mayor, and then he's, rallying the people to his cause to overthrow the evil dictator or something. So yeah, it's not just about going in and killing everybody in the town. It's about going in and changing the hearts and minds of the people and stuff, or stealing document. Maybe the spy is there to simply, find some special document that needs to be taken, or a special item like a relic that needs to be procured or something as well too. But yeah, he's definitely the guy who guy or gal, I should say, who is going in and impersonating and using intrigue skills to get things done. So
Cool. Tommy Bennett chimed in. He said, "How about an Umbral night?" He says Umbral means shadow, and then he also said, "How about a courtier or courtesan for the spy?" And then Jose said a lancer would be cool too, and with the LOL. So we
yeah,
got
I mean,
some.
we could do. Yeah, I think I mean that's always something we could do. If it fits, I think it might be cool. I loved the Cavalier class when it came out. I think it was a deity Unearthed Arcana in first edition.
Mhm.
They came out with a Cavalier class. It's kind of a mounted knight kind of thing. That's cool. I mean, it might be something we'll put in a different book, like later down the line, like a supplement or something with additional classes, like our very own kind of twist on the Unearthed Arcana. With more spells and more character classes and stuff. Or if it fits in this one, I mean, we could do that too. Cavalier class or a Lancer, however we want to call it, would fit either way.
All right. Well, and Jody, that wraps up all the classes that I had wrote down. Now, did you have any further notes? Did you have any classes that you wanted to add? Anything like that?
I don't have anything to add other than just a couple of changes, like the Barbarian Berserker idea. And then just my idea, again, more of the idea on magic, but that's going to come in a little bit later when we talk about that stuff. So,
Okay, awesome. All right. Next up is race, and I have nothing under race. Um,
I have a few
so
ideas.
okay, let's hear them.
Okay. So, um, you know, race is one of those things right now, and that's really big in the community for role playing games and tabletop stuff. That everybody's trying to find a better word for race, to be a little bit more culturally sensitive, which is it's fine. Uh, uh, Runehammer calls them
Bioforms.
bioforms, which fits for his game. Probably doesn't fit so well for this one. But I mean, we could definitely call it something other than race, maybe ethnicity or identity or something like that. But I think as far as OSR games go, you got to do elf, you got to do dwarf, you got to have the base ones. Halfling, I think, fits in there as well too. We could do a gnome. I'm not a keen fan of gnomes, but it's always something that's doable. I was thinking of maybe doing something called like the sort of opposite of sort of something halfling, sort of like a human type thing. On the opposite end of that, like a bigger thing, like maybe calling them it's sort of like a Goliath in fifth edition, sort of a large race of people that are more akin to like giant kind type of thing. Maybe they stand like 7-8 foot tall. It would be interesting to see. And again, these are all just quick sketches and notes I put down, but like maybe some sort of living, like a plant type race as well too. You know, sort of like an ant, but a little bit more, swarthy than an ant, a little faster. But some kind of thing like that, like a wildling type of idea of like a creature that's born out of nature itself, but has an intelligence type thing. I love minotaurs. It would be cool to do like a minotaur race. But you know, those are just quick thoughts I had jotted down. But I think we definitely have to stick with, you know, humans are always going to be sort of that the majority sort of thing in any fantasy type game. You got to have elves. Now, what are your thoughts on elves? Do you prescribe to the like second edition D&D where they're sort of long lived, but they're kind of comic short? I always kind of loved the more Tolkien-esque type, taller, and they were more haughty because they were so long lived. They kind of felt like the importance in the world. They had sort of a egotistical outlook on life as well too. Dwarves, the very stereotypical, you know, miners being greedy, loving treasure, that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on those?
Um, well, typically that's the type of elf and dwarf that I usually go with. Um, I had a idea, and let me bounce this off you. And we got some people watching. They're doing some different suggestions, but let me bounce this idea off you. What if the elves and dwarfs in this world were not playable classes? Um, what if the elves did have a long life, but the secret is that the elves are truly almost vampiric in nature? That how they continue to extend their life and stay youthful is by doing something along the lines of devouring the souls of humans, or something that is hidden but fairly nefarious. And then my thought for the dwarves is the dwarves could almost be they're greedy, but they're almost like the Morlocks from the Time Machine. Like they don't come above the surface anymore, and you don't necessarily want to run into dwarves in a dark tunnel. But those are just kind of some thoughts I have. What do you think about that?
No, it's cool. I like that. It's yeah, I dig that idea. I think the elves. I think that's a cool idea. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of a blend of Robert Schwab's Shadow of the Demon Lord elves. That they're sort of these. They're not necessarily a good race. They're not necessarily. It's hard to say good and bad. They have their own sort of outlook on life because they're so long lived. I like the idea that they're sort of Tolkien-esque as well, though, too, that they're sort of, they feel as if the Earth, being the oldest race, they feel as if the Earth is maybe um, their domain. It would be cool. Yeah, I like the idea of siphoning souls. Maybe they're kind of Aztec in culture a little bit, and that they sacrifice people that's it that extends their life, is that they're sacrificing these people, and it's they're using their souls as a way to longevity and immortality.
That'd be cool.
I like the idea of the dwarves being like the Duragar in 5th edition, where something has really pissed them off in the past, and they don't come to the surface anymore, and they don't like the surface races anymore. And if you dwell, if you step into their dwelling under the mountain, there's going to be hell to pay. And yeah, no, I dig that a lot. I think that's cool. Yeah, we could definitely make it more of a humanocentric type of game where humanity is would be the choice, would be the main choice of character races. And there might be a few scattered other ones that would be very much a minority. I've always thought it was really interesting to feed into things like, the idea of playing like a drow elf and then going into a city. No one's going to like that person. There's going to be a lot of like biases against that character. So if you're playing, say, like a sentient plant creature, a wildling is what I call them in my notes, that in your own culture you're fine, but you come to a big city, metropolis type area, there's going to be some weird looks or something, or people whispering about you and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's cool. I like the idea of the elves being sort of like kind of a sadistic type culture, and that they are sacrificing others, whether it be their own kind or taking slaves of other nations, and using their souls to give them immortality and stuff. That's cool. I like it.
All right. And then I did have one more race that I thought to make, since we would be taking elf and dwarf off the table, I thought it would be really cool to have goblin as a playable race. And my thought is goblins and humans don't necessarily get along. And so if you pick the goblin race, you're going to you'll get some benefits for being a goblin. You'll get some racial traits for being a goblin, but then you're also going to have issues of you're not going to be trusted when you go in cities. Humans aren't going to trust you. Goblins are going to see you as a traitor, but parties will typically hire you because you can speak to goblins or possibly to orcs and maybe defuse situations that would otherwise result in a mass combat. I thought that'd be an interesting um, psychology for a character is that yeah, maybe you're not welcome anywhere you go, but but you are what you are.
Sure. No, I've always thought goblins make a cool character. One of my favorite short stories was written by R.A. Salvatore, and his iconic character Dritz Duerden. But the short story is actually a story about how Dritz is traveling from one place to another, and he comes upon a small farm where he decides he's going to stay. He knows he's not welcome anywhere as well, so he decides he's going to stay in this barn. In the barn, he finds a goblin slave, and he befriends him. And the goblin tells him that, like, I follow orders because the guy's more powerful than I am. This farmer, I do whatever he tells me to. And so Dritz starts to give him this sort of tale about what is freedom and what it is to be free and what it is to be good and sort of break out of your cultural stereotypes and stuff as well. And so they have this discussion over the night, and in the morning Dritz leaves, and when he comes back, the goblin is actually hanging from a tree. The farmer had actually hung him because he tried to escape, and above him it says a sign that says something about like this is where freedom gets you, kind of thing. And it was always a very powerful story for me to think, wow, you're right, that you could take these kind of iconic classes or creatures that are normally thought of as being evil and giving them a little bit of a twist that, not all goblins are evil, kind of thing. Or maybe that they're sort of like the elves in the fact that what they think they're doing is right, but it's for their own sort of egotistical kind of thing. So having a goblin character would be really dynamic. It would be a lot of fun. They can also add a little bit of comedic relief to the game as well too. I see them as being sort of like not super intelligent, but at the same time very sneaky and very good. Naturally as a goblin, kind of being sneaky and being I can't think of the word I'm looking for here, but yeah, just that idea. I think it adds a lot of dynamic to it. So yeah, I think the goblin's a great idea. Or we could do kobold. Any of those kind of little races like that would be a cool fit. And I think that's one of those things that people are looking for too. Just having like read and been on a lot of the communities online and stuff, I see a lot of people wanting to play strange little races like that, like goblins or tabaxi, with the cat folk, those kind of things as well too. So people are always looking for something kind of strange and different and unique to play besides just a human or an elf or dwarf. So yeah, goblin, I'm all for it.
Awesome, cool deal. All right, well, we got some stuff in the chat over here.
Okay.
Let's see. Steve says dwarves would make a great gangster race. I like that one. Let's see. Oh, hey, Evan just joined us. So what's up, Evan? How's it going, man?
Hi, Evan.
Let's see. Tommy said perhaps the elves steal human kids as in tradition to gain power from them somehow, and then turn them out as souped up quasi elf with superpowers when they can no longer channel power for the elves. That's kind of interesting. Steve says goblins are great and would make a good competitor race for humans. Cool. Jose says maybe humans have goblins around because they look at them as cheap labor and dumb and see them as exploitable. And Jose said, can we get ogres? No, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. Let's see. And then Tommy says, Simbaroom has goblins and ogres as characters. Cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking with the other race, with like the Goliath idea was, yeah, it could be ogres, they could be something. It's just a race to sort of like counteract the halfling idea. It's it's the race that's bigger than humans, that's a little bit more powerful, it's a little bit more imposing than humans, kind of thing. But they could be ogres, they could be Goliath. Let me click over here and see what I actually called them. Let's see. I call them Jotuns or Jotuns. You just kind of give it a little bit of a Nordic vibe kind of thing. But yeah, I think that'd be cool. Ogres would be fun. Palladium Fantasy lets you do that kind of stuff too. You can play an ogre, a giant, that kind of stuff as well too. So
let me bounce this idea off you. This is something that I'd created for a white box setting that I played a long time ago, and I created a race called the Miniton. And what the Miniton were is they look like elves. So they're very muscular, very thin, pointy ears, but they're only about 2 foot tall. And what they were able to do is they would always ride around on either like rabbits or dogs, and they were always able to somehow, they had some kind of kinship with these animals and were able to summon them to them. And so they would fight in the melees on these animals, and they're hard to hit because they're smaller. But on the opposite side of that, they don't do much damage because they are smaller. But some people who were playing in that campaign seemed to have fun with that. But I don't know if that's just getting a little, because that was a more, I guess, not corny, but a more comedic type tone to that game. I don't know if that's something that's too far out of the realm of what we're trying to do.
Well, what if we kind of split the difference with that, and then we got rid of the halfling and did more of a Spriggan type of an idea? It's not really a fairy. They don't have wings or anything, but they are a smaller race. They were meant to be very in touch with the nature. They're always sort of like depicted like riding owls or rabbits or foxes, that kind of thing. And to counteract the fact that they were small, they would use things like poison-tipped arrows, or they would set up ambushes for people to fall into, and that kind of thing. I think that's a cool idea. I like it a lot. In fact, even in Palladium Fantasy, one of the races you could play was like a fairy kind of thing, or so I think a smaller race like that would be cool. It kind of fits in. It is kind of I can see where the comedic kind of part of that can come about, but at the same time, you could play it. You could play it as more of a type of thing where they are fierce warriors, but they're just very small. So in their communities and stuff, they're considered, these great warriors. But when they come and interact with, human races, the larger races, it's they have to overcome those setbacks by doing things like, using poison-tipped arrows or ambushes, or even using the animal mounts as their attack. So like, rather than them attacking, they, if they're on the back of an owl, it's the owl that actually attacks and does the damage, kind of thing, clawing at eyes, that kind of stuff. Or a hawk, or some kind of thing like that. So yeah,
I'm totally down with that. That sounds wonderful. Cool. And I'm not familiar with that race. So you said they're Spriggan?
Yeah, Spriggans. They're however it's Spriggan. It's just one of the fey creatures that comes up a lot, like with brownies and fairies and pixies and stuff. But I think Spriggan's a cool name. Nobody's ever used Spriggan before, I think so.
Well, Jose's digging it. He's saying, yes, more monster races.
Yeah, cool.
So, all right. Well, that's cool. That gives us a good area to start from as far as races go. That will separate us from your standard game. Let's see. Languages. I think languages should pretty much be your standard languages. Do you have any exceptions to that?
No, not at all.
All right, we do have on here skills. All the Survive This games have skills, but with this game, I would not be opposed to not including skills, but and if we do include skills, I'd want it to be minor or a smaller list of more general skills. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I kind of torn on the skills thing. Like sometimes I've seen games that do it really, really well, but usually the games that do skills well are games that are skill-based games, like Call of Cthulhu and like Palladium does it very well, but they you have tons and tons and tons of skills. It would almost be better if we sort of kept them like you've done in Survive This and make them almost more like talents or special abilities that actually come from a character class or a race.
Okay.
As a Spriggan, you might have, a higher defense against larger creatures. So that makes your thing go up. You might, as an archer, you're automatically going to have archery skills, that kind of thing. But they're sort of born into the character class or the racial class. So whenever you sort of combine the two, you get a spread of different skills. But it's not like there's a list of skills to draw from. And again, that just feeds into the narrative thing. If you get to a point where you're like, hey, I'm a thief, I should know how to pick locks. Well, yeah, of course you know how to pick locks. You're a thief, Those things are kind of like naturally, narratively kind of drawn in. I don't think that we have to have like animal husbandry or, those like, we don't have to have like a whole list of different skills. I think it's going to be one of those sort of rulings over rules kind of thing as well. So,
Okay.
So yeah, I think if we add them in and call them like talents or special abilities that are actually tied to a race and or a character class, I think that's fine. I think that works pretty well.
Okay, awesome. Up next, we got XP with the XP tables and the optional XP tables. This is one of those things. One of the things that I get complimented on quite a bit is our XP system and Survive This. So it's not one that I want to change or fudge with. You all right with that?
Yeah, man. If it's not broken, don't fix it. So I think it works great.
All right. Well, let's see. I tell you what, Jody, we are at almost the 2-hour mark.
Okay.
And we are not halfway through. So how about
right.
how about we wrap this one up and continue it next week? Next week, we got like the equipment stuff, which isn't going to be very much, but magic is going to be the big thing.
Sure.
Unless you're ready to talk about magic now, since we got some people watching and stuff.
It would be better if we probably saved it because I could talk for a couple hours about magic. So
okay, all right. So then what we'll do is next we'll try this again next week. You and I'll get together and figure out what day and time works, and we'll jump right in, knock equipment out, and move right into magic.
Cool.
And then
yeah, maybe we can schedule this one out and then we can have a.
Let's see. Steve says skills really help flesh out classes, our characters. Please keep the skills.
Yeah, if we do skills, I think we would have them included in with the character classes and races. So they wouldn't be a separate set, but they'd be ones you could draw on. There would be ones that you could draw upon that would make your character unique, but they wouldn't just be a generic list of skills. I think it's better if they're tied to a class and a race kind of thing.
Sweet.
But yeah, I agree. I agree with you totally, Stephen. I think that skills they're a great way to sort of make your character unique amongst other characters. So.
All right, guys, and so we're gonna be jumping off here in just a second. But if you got any last comments or questions you want to drop in the chat, we will do our best to get them answered for you, and then we'll be heading out of here. This is always the hard part. There's the delay, so you're waiting like, is anybody typing? And I thank everybody, seriously, though, for sticking around. We had quite a few viewers and a pretty active chat. Evan says, talents for races and skills for class. Makes sense.
Perfect. Yep.
Fred says, thanks, guys. Thank you, Fred. Really appreciate you sticking around, man. I think you were in here from almost the very beginning.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, man. I think it's neat to get some community feedback right off the bat, and yeah, thanks for everybody for jumping in and weighing in on what we had to say. And next week maybe we'll now that we've got the kinks worked out, we know how this works. We can schedule a little bit ahead of time, and then we can maybe have people set some time aside to watch and join in. So.
Sounds good, man. We can figure all that out. Yeah. Jose says, looking forward to more of this. Thanks, Jose. We really appreciate you tuning in tonight. He said, so I know this is dorky, but any crafting classes? So far, no. Joe, do you got any crafting classes in mind?
I mean, it kind of falls into the alchemist a little bit. I think the alchemist would be that kind of person. He could definitely, and he's going to be the guy who crafts potions and different types of things. Maybe as that class we can throw in things like he's good at crafting different items, amulets, what have it kind of thing. I kind of see him as being sort of the crafty class.
All right. Well, looks like the last one just came in. Steve says Evan nailed it. So he likes the talents for races and the skills for class. So guys, I'm going to stop the video here. We're going to cut off. Again, if you haven't already followed Jody's channel, Questwise, go over there, give him a follow. We'll be doing more of this coming up in the future. Look for another video like this probably next week. And for those who were friends of ours on social media, which I think is everybody who's been in here tonight, you'll see us posts about it. So we'll try to give you a little more advanced notice so you guys can jump in there if you'd like to. Jody, go ahead, and if you would, just hang on the line with me. I want to make sure that I get this all figured out. And
hey, one last request, though, too, Eric.
Yeah, go ahead.
If anybody's watching, please share Eric's page too, man. His channel is fantastic, and spread the love for some Bloat games. If we get this uploaded, share this with your friends. Get some more folks. I think Eric's a great dude, man, and he needs. I think he deserves a lot more subscribers to his channel as well too. So spread the word. Get some Bloat games out there to the folks.
Awesome, thank you, man. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight. The Bloat Games crew. Again, thanks everybody for stopping in. Thanks everybody for checking us out, and we will be back at you next week. Bye.